Hello and welcome to our Hawaiian Beach House Bungalow. It's the Real Good Toys Beachside Bungalow. Today we are actually making a refrigerator from mat board using the Cricut machine, some vinyl and mat board, and walking you through the process of how we came up with a prototype as well as the actual movable part refrigerator. As you can see, this is the Cricut maker that we used, and this is what the mat looks like when you lay out all the pieces. And then I tried to color coordinate it just so that I could get an idea of what it would look like on the mat board, and then trying to figure out, once I cut the pieces, how would I know which piece belonged to what. This was for the cardstock one that we cut out to trial, and you can see these are some of the measurements we took, and had to look at all the different parts: the top, the back, the sides, the bottom, the inserts, the sides of the refrigerator doors, the freezer drawer, etc. And so this just gives you an overview. We had to tweak it after we put it together because we found that I had actually made some mistakes. You have to take the full length and then subtract the pieces that are going to fit to it, and the same with the width to coordinate. And then you need to look at the thickness of the particular material that you're going to use to put together the refrigerator. For instance, if it's a 1/16 of an inch, then that's a challenge. And what we found was obviously cardstock was thinner than the 4-ply mat board, but when I glued the mat board together, I found out that it actually shrank in the dimension, so we had to actually add a few more pieces. And then just showing you how we tried to come up with the door handles. Cut them out of cardstock as well as the vinyl, and I'll show you in a few minutes how we use the toothpicks. And this just shows you how it cuts, and the machine will actually tell you the percentage of the cut to give you an idea of where you are, and when it's 100%, and then you'll get a blinking light telling you it's ready to remove. This is what it looks like once it's cut out, and you can see. And then there's just some descriptions here. I try to put descriptions by each item just to give me an idea when I went back to try to piece it together, so that we'd have a better idea. And you can see we tried to put a water dispenser, ice maker, and make it look close to the original. Obviously it's not. It's just for the dollhouse. So again, these are just more pictures of what it looks like, and you can actually see the dimensions and manipulate the width and the height that you need on the Cricut Design Space. It's really a cool machine. You can do this by hand too with an X-Acto knife, but I thought this would be a little more efficient. And then these are just the shelves that are going to go into the door, right door, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's what it looks like on the mat board. And there it's cut out of the machine. And here are your handles for the freezer and the 2 side doors. That's what it looked like when we were designing it. And this is the machine cutting it out. And you can see it starts at just a small percentage, and it had 8 passes, and I wanted to make that clear. You don't take it out, you just keep pushing the little C and let it keep running through how many passes, and you set on the machine what material you're using, and it just keeps cutting and cutting and cutting. I found even with this mat board I had to use an X-Acto knife and cut through some of the layers even after 8 passes. I tried to do it even 12 and 16 passes, but I still started tearing it up, so I had to stop. That's with the mat board. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention that I thought was pretty cool with this machine, you can take the basic shapes like a circle, and you unhook the padlock and you can change it into an elliptical shape, which is how I created the handles, and then just click the padlock back so it's locked in place. Now what you're looking at are the pieces that are the cardstock pieces, and how we glued them together side by side, each one. And this is, of course, what it looks like when it was all finished. I used whatever I had to prop it to keep it, the edges and the sides, so they would be at 45-degree angles. just something a little sturdy to prop against it. I used Aleene's tacky glue, and that seemed to work really well. And the beauty is with the mat board, you can paint it. So we'll show you that in a few minutes. But again, this is just all the sides. It's pretty rough, and we sanded it to get all the rough edges off. And you'll see I used emery boards, emery nail blocks. They work really well. Your art gum erasers work well to prop up because it's so lightweight. It doesn't take long at all with Aleene's tacky glue. So just a lot of pieces that have to go together. I dry fitted a lot to make sure it was all going to come together, because it's, we're talking tiny pieces, and just a little error can make a mistake. What I like too is you'll see it actually cut out the center of the refrigerator door, which I could not do as precisely with an X-Acto knife. So that was pretty cool. And then I made a box. Those little pieces you saw were connected to the horizontal pieces to make the ice maker box that's going to go inside the door. And it's just to show you how we marked it, so I knew where to glue the pieces. It was a challenge. And then you see the little horizontal and the teardrop. Those are vinyl pieces we cut out of the Cricut, and then the silver is vinyl also, and you'll see where that goes in a little while. And it just very nicely peels off. This piece of rectangular vinyl, I think I said horizontal earlier, I meant rectangular. I use that to fit over that small box that becomes the ice maker, so that it would give a nice sheen when you looked inside the refrigerator door. And just covered the whole thing with vinyl, glued it in place, made sure it was nice and dry. I'm learning, you take your time. Don't be in a rush. I mitered the corners so they would fit neatly. And then I just took the edge of a pencil or a rubber stylus and just pushed in so it would be snug in the corners inside the box. And there you are. So then we have a top cap that goes on, and I have a rectangular piece that goes on that to show your electronic piece. We use the Cricut transfer tape to take up the vinyl pieces. You see that it's hard to see, but that's what it looks like. It's like clear contact paper, but it's the Cricut brand. You took that, and then you lay it on where you want it, like that was on the rectangular piece. Now these little medallions are the silver pieces to make for the ice maker and the water dispenser. So you put it on the Cricut tape, then you lay it where you want it, and then you squeegee it with, you could use a credit card, you could use whatever. That's a device that would make it smooth, and that's just showing you how it's laying out. And then I took it, just show you how small it is. So I layered them on the one rectangle and then put it onto the machine. So you have that. That's going to be your ice dispenser, your water dispenser. This is the drawer to the freezer. Wanted to make sure it fit neatly, because then you have to put a top on top of that, which is the base to the refrigerator, and it has to fit. And then you have shelves that go in the refrigerator, as we all know. I just used plain shelves. I didn't get fancy. There's your glue. I had to actually layer a few pieces of cardstock together to make the base as well as the bottom shelf of the refrigerator, and I just used banker's clips to make sure it was tight. Okay, here's your handle to the refrigerator, and you can see that's an actual toothpick. I'm sure all of you have better ideas, but this was my first trial. And I took the cardstock on the other side, so I have cardstock, toothpick, cardstock, and then eventually vinyl. Once I have it shaped the way I want, gluing each section, and made sure it was going to fit the front of the refrigerator. Just took a few more pictures to show you what it looks like and how small it is. It's one thing about miniatures. It is very tiny. And those of you that do 1/24th, it's even more amazing. Now, this I thought was kind of fun. I took the individual artificial tears and clipped off the rectangular piece. and you'll see that in a minute. I decided I wanted to make a light inside the refrigerator to look like the grid light in my refrigerator, so I used a hole punch, cut out 4 holes, painted them yellow with acrylic paint, had little tiny strips, rectangular strips, to make the grid, and that's out of cardstock, and glued it on. And here you are. See how I've cut just the rectangular piece off the artificial tears. I used isopropyl alcohol to clean the words off, the ink off that. It took a few swipes, but it came off, as you can see, nice and clear. Those are going to be your refrigerator shelves inside the refrigerator door. There they are, gluing in place to the cardstock. So here's the light with the little strips on top. Again, it's make-believe, but we're trying to make it look like as close as we can without having real lighting. So I've taken the, I didn't use Cricut transfer tape. I actually used contact paper, clear plastic, to go over it so it would give a bit of a sheen. And then what you're looking at now is the door of the refrigerator with the artificial tears shelves in them, glued and intact. And just to show you, emery board, the sanding block, which is basically a nail block, can be from even a dollar store. Painted the mat board with this acrylic white, and I didn't really like it because I could see that it had a lot of blemishes, and so then I turned around and I painted it with a silver, metallic acrylic silver, and there you can see the vinyl as it fits in nicely for the ice maker, and then the covering for the ice maker on the outside of the door. And that's your freezer door. It's not perfect, but it does come together nicely, and I think it actually looks better in person than it does in these pictures. There's the glue we used. And just to show you just a little bit, I experimented with on the sides, wedged toothpicks, anything you can use to apply, and finally came up with something that worked for me. And there's my messy workstation, and my husband helping me try to put hinges on. And I have to admit that was a failure. We bought the little miniature hinges, tried to glue them on, they wouldn't stay. And did a little more research and found if I'd actually probably done it 2 layers of the mat board, I would have been able to cut out the portion to put the hinge. But we ended up going with electrical tape, and it worked beautifully, and it stayed on so far. It's been at least, what, a week and a half now. Might have to go back and rethink it later, but for the first prototype, we're pleased with it, and we're stopping. There's just putting the tape on. And you've got to match up the inside shelves, you've got to match up your shelves in your door, you've got to match up the ice maker where your hinges are. So future reference, I would actually mark the area where I'm going to have my hinges and probably do that first. Now, I also showed you some miniature magnets. I cut some magnet strips, very tiny, and I glued them to the front of the refrigerator, so the doors and the refrigerator doors, so they could stick and nicely close. Use Gorilla Glue to glue the toothpicks with the tacky glue. A friend had taught me a long time ago, if you will take tacky glue and a drop of the Loctite, Gorilla Glue, whatever, it will keep it a nice secure bond. So we use that. You can see I cut extra strips for the shelves to put above and the shelves in the refrigerator to kind of keep it in place. I could have been more creative and maybe have put a brace on top and below to actually slide the racks in. I might do that the next time. So here you are. We have a stainless steel effect, side-by-side refrigerator with a freezer drawer with door handles that you can actually pull open and doesn't come off so far, and it fits nicely into the beachside bungalow. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click like and subscribe and tell your friends. Until next time, have a good day. Mahalo.